Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
And we're live. The chat works because I just threw a chat in there. I mean, I can always, we could do like a thing after the talk where I read some of the comments.
Yeah. I promise I'll get started right away, everyone. My name is Zoso Birss, and my pronouns are they and them. And I'm very happy to be here, and I just found the live.
All right, so you're good with the... So everybody, Zo's our guest speaker. I am going to mute my mic, turn off my camera, and we're just going to enjoy this great talk. I'm very excited for it. And then I'll pop back on after the talk, and we'll do some afterglow Q&A if anyone has any questions. How's that sound? Good?
Sounds good to me, Josh.
All right.
Thanks.
No problem. Let's rock and roll.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Zoe. My pronouns are they and them. And just taking a look at the comments here. Please introduce yourself. Tell each other where you're from. Oh, I know most of you. There's Joshua, Kate, Jessica. I don't know RCG5227. Hi. Roberta. Hi, Steve. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for the comment on my shirt. I also love this shirt very much. And every time I wear it, people tell me it's fabulous. So thank you. And Andrea, hi. Hi, Victrola. Share your pronouns and where you're from. And while I'm talking, please feel free to talk to each other. I'm going to put up a little barrier so that I can only see my camera and I won't be able to see the comments because I will be very distracted by them. I'm going to try and get through what I have to say quickly so that we have lots of time to talk afterwards. And I'm going to go through the comments after. I'll take the little barrier down and I'll look at the comments. And if there's any questions, I'll interact with them. And I'm hoping that while this is happening, y'all will interact with each other. And in fact, a lot of what I am talking about today has to do with nonviolent communication I'm going to get there. It's kind of my final conversation, final bit of the conversation. And so I'm hoping that there will be some interaction and even some disagreement because I guess I'll just say right at the very beginning, at the end, I'm going to talk about actually, you know what? I'm going to spill the beans. I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I'm going to tell you at the end. And I'm going to encourage you to practice these things. And then at the end, I'm going to say it all again. So here they are. So here's my final points on the practice of nonviolent communication. I encourage you to do the following. Did I write them down? Yes, I did. Okay. Be vulnerable. Share with people what you're feeling. So so often we come up to conversation with other people, belief to belief, and the beliefs that we hold are often quite crystallized and even close to our identity. Just a moment. Excuse me. Close to our identity, and it can be very difficult for somebody else to hear what we have to say. Oh, I'm already preaching the end of my message. To hear what we have to say, if they also have a belief that's contrary, that is very close to their identity. But if you can share how you feel, not just what you believe, but how you feel, and you can put yourself in that vulnerable place, and you can listen. This is the other part, to how the other person feels. then you may find yourself having a more productive conversation. Also, one other thing is describe what you need. So um, you might be having a discussion about um, trans rights in the United States. And maybe you have a friend who's trans, or maybe you're trans, or you have a child who's trans, and or maybe you just are an ally and you care very much about uh, trans rights and safety in the United States. Talk about what it is that you need, or that you're asking for from the other person. Maybe you need them to listen to your story. So yeah, and then listen to what it is that they need. Maybe that other person, the thing that they need is assurance that children in the United States are going to be safe. Maybe they've heard a lot of rhetoric about safety around trans identity, and what they want is to know that you care about their children and their children's safety. You can acknowledge that because likely you share that value. So anyway, there you go. Now you don't even have to listen. If you like what I just said, then I mean, just whatever, ignore what I have to say from now until the end, and just talk amongst yourselves. So we've got some folks from Arizona. Let's see. RCG is from Pennsylvania. Roberta is from New Mexico. Hi, RCG. And thanks, Lisa. Thanks for sharing your pronouns. Hi, Selena. Yes, we did have the chat turned off, Chris. It was an error earlier, but it's turned on now. It's no problem. There you go. So I think that's all for now. I might take a look at the comments again in a moment because I have some questions. If it turns out that the delay makes it too difficult, then I will stop trying to do that and just give the message. So here we go. Oh, I'm going to start by saying thanks to Joshua and to Jay. Joshua, thanks for your work yesterday and today, and for the work that you do to support Jay and to support Revolution, and for helping make this happen. Josh is behind the scenes right now, literally on the other side of the continent, running this video feed through 2 apps, which is why there's a significant delay. And that's just neat. Thanks, Josh. And Jay, we miss you. Jay got to see the Circle Jerks and 7 Seconds last night, so jealous. Also, he got to meet Kevin Seconds and got an autograph. If you go to his Instagram page, he put that as a post. So yay for Jay. We miss Jay, and thanks for this opportunity. Also, I wanted to share a photo. You'll see, since I've been here, that over here, there is a photo of Jay and I from 2002. But that photo I am less excited to share than I am the photo following, because, well, first of all, the first photo, I have no idea if Josh has already put up the second one, but in the first photo, you'll notice, you won't notice, but there's a little dot on my collar. That's a Canadian flag pin. And way back in 2002, Jay was a little bit more rough around the edges than he is now. And he definitely did call me out for wearing a Canada flag pin back in 2002. He a little bit of light ribbing. And thanks, Jay. I'm an anarchist now, so I blame you. And then the guy in the background, that's Derek Mensch. He's a mutual friend of Jay and I guess you could say, and a punk that was photobombing pictures before that was a thing. The second picture, though, that is a picture that Jay and I took because the other thing that Jay did, like I said, light ribbing, the other thing that Jay did was we hung out for the weekend with a group of friends, And in one of my first interactions with Jay, once I guess he felt comfortable enough to do such a thing, he said, "So, how long have you been going bald?" With sort of a little half smirk. And I said, "I've been going bald since high school. How long have you been going bald?" And yeah, so we had a little bit of a connection there, and I insisted that we take a picture. So there it is. That's how bald I was in 2002. That's how bald Jay was in 2002. And I'll just say this: I don't wear a hat. Jay does. So just that's all I have to say about that. We miss you, Jay. I know you'll listen to this later. No, I love you. So I want to start with a land acknowledgement. This is where I was going to ask you guys a question, but I think the delay makes this a little too difficult. So I'm going to say, I'm going to ask the question, and I guess you can discuss it in the comments, and I'll probably see what you wrote later. I want to ask you if you know what a land acknowledgement is and why we do it. I'll just give you a moment with that. I'll take a drink of this delicious water. What is your experience with land acknowledgements? What do you think of them? Have you ever experienced one before? So, land acknowledgements, I believe, are very important for those of us who live in colonized lands. That's where I am. I'm in Canada. And Canada is a colonial nation. That means that we only exist because this state exists as it does because colonizers came and took this land. Long before folks that look like me arrived, there were people here first, and those people experienced a genocide. A lot of the ways that we talk about sort of dystopic futures and horrible events happening to women and to those of us with less power, these futures that we fear are not a future reality for the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. That's where we are. This is a reality. They are living in a world that was created around them, not for them. And right now we're in a time where we have an opportunity to begin to heal or begin to offer opportunities for reconciliation. I don't think that that's something that's going to happen quickly. I don't think it's going to even take one generation. I think it's going to take longer than that. Personally, I think that until land is given back, we're going to continue to be in this place. But this is why we do a land acknowledgement. This is the people that the land belongs to. And so I'm going to do that now. I acknowledge the traditional land on which I reside is in Treaty 6 territory. Before settlers like myself arrived, the Cree people who lived here called it Amasquatchie, Beaver Hills. I am thankful for the diverse Indigenous people who are my neighbors, my comrades, and my friends, and who continue today, as their ancestors did, to steward this land, such as the Nehiyaw, Cree, Dene, Anishinaabe, Soto, Nakota Iska, Nakota Sioux, and Niitsitapi. This is also the Métis homeland and a home to many Inuit people today. I'm especially grateful to elders Russell and Travis Enright. After I left ministry in 2015, I displayed symptoms of trauma that included a loss of my ability to pray. Earlier this year, Russell Auger burned tobacco with me and led me through a process of prayer, and for the first time, I was able to enter a prayer space with his guidance. Since then, I've been able to access prayer again. It is unlikely that I would be here willing to preach now if not for the intentional spiritual care of these two Cree men. This, let's just sit with that for a moment. It was very important to me that I start with a land acknowledgement this time because it actually takes me to a main point of what I have to say. And that is something that I've never said before in a message, at least not addressing a group of people that want to be part of the Jesus story. And that is that we can also make something like a land acknowledgement when it comes to our Bibles. This Bible was not written by people who look like me. It was not written by people, or it was not written for people who look like me. It was written by, about, and for racialized and colonized people. That is the story of the Bible. Let me tell you what I mean. I'm going to start by telling you about one of my favorite historic humans of all time, forever and ever. His name was Jesus. Jesus was born in the first century. In the first century, there was a mighty empire called Rome. And Rome was taking over the world with some brand new technology called roads. They were spreading their roads, they were building their roads all over the land from Rome and colonizing the areas around them. Jesus was born in an area called Palestine. And in Palestine, there was many different people groups. Jewish people were one of them. That was his people. And he was born into Palestine as it was being occupied by this colonizing force. Jesus grew up seeing these roads built through his land, separating communities. Jesus grew up watching cop stations be built. Before Rome arrived, these indigenous peoples mostly got along with each other, but they ruled their own lives, relatively speaking. Rome arrived, and the first ones to arrive were soldiers on horseback. These were the cops. And the cops on horseback arrived first to say, Romans are coming. This is part of Rome now, and we have weapons. You can't stop us. He watched them build their new buildings. He watched them establish their settlements. And he watched them build their roads. And he watched these people with weapons on horseback riding through his land. People that didn't know his stories, didn't know his traditions. And they began to settle. Jesus was raised by a badass punk mom. And when I say badass punk mom, I wrote down a passage here that I would like to read to you. Luke chapter 1, verses 46 to 55. So for those who forget or didn't know or doubt that Mary was a punk rocker, here is a song that she wrote. Luke chapter 1, verse 46. So keeping in mind that this is the world that she lived in, this is what she said upon discovering that she's going to have a baby. She says, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit has rejoiced in God my Savior, for he has regarded the lowly state of his maidservant. For behold, henceforth all generations will call me blessed. For he who is mighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name. And his mercy is on those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He has put down the mighty from their thrones and exalted the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, as he spoke to our fathers, to Abraham, and to his seed forever. This is a song of revolution. Roll credits. Um, this is a song of societal change. This is an upside down kingdom. This is a reordering of things as they were. And this woman raised Jesus. She raised Jesus with the stories of the Maccabees and the other revolutionaries who lived in just a few hundred years before Jesus. My camera's wiggling because my phone is on a cat tree, and Hobbs, my beautiful kitty, is at the top of the cat tree, and he can do whatever he wants. And that means my phone's going to wiggle. And he's watching me preach. So I feel like St. Francis of Assisi right now because I have covered up everything but the camera, but I can see my cat. So I'm preaching about Jesus to my cat, like St. Francis of Assisi. So Jesus heard these stories of the revolutionaries, and Jesus would have been familiar with their names because the names that were given to children at that time in the first century were the names of those Jewish revolutionaries. This was a people that were ready to see things change. They weren't happy that Rome was there. Jesus grew up in a poor area. He was in a disadvantaged area. He didn't live in the center of the cultural zeitgeist. He was in Galilee. He would have known zealots, the people who were ready to throw down, to change things that that they were seeing around them, to overthrow Rome, even to die. This was what Jesus grew up in. This was Jesus' normal. Jesus heard the stories of his people. And I'm going to tell you one of the stories now. Or rather, I'm going to tell you the story. Here comes the Bible. The rest of my reference for this message is the Bible. Here goes. The Bible Zoe version. So Jesus' mom would have told him the story of 500 or so years ago, another time when Jesus' people were under empire. And at this time, Jesus' people found themselves under the empire of Babylon. Babylon did not respect the traditions and the stories of Jesus' people. Jesus' people were racialized. They were put into the poor area of town. They experienced violence, and they were not free to worship and to live freely and to use the land for their own good and for their own prosperity. It was stolen by Babylon. They were separated from their land. And during this time, Jesus' people said, what do we do? His ancestors, Jesus' ancestors said, what do we do? And so they went and they gathered their stories. They gathered their texts. They looked back at all of their old stories and they said, let's put this together and make a book that we can share with our children and with our children of our children that tells the story of who we are, our relationship with each other, our relationship with God, and our relationship with this empire. And they gathered their stories, and at that time, that's when they put together the texts that we call the Hebrew Scriptures today. And the stories that they told, they looked at them and they said, this is the story we're going to tell. We've been here before. And they told the story of an empire called Egypt. And they told a story of an empire called Egypt and said, this is an empire that fell a long time ago, because empires fall, they don't remain. And we're still here. Empires fall. Not only that, but this empire, it was on our backs that this empire was built. We lived in a little ghetto of Egypt called Gershon. And we were racialized and we were separated from the rest of the people of Egypt. They had the power. We did not. And we had to work all day, every day, for rations so that we had the privilege of basically giving our bodies to the death so that this empire could be built until a rescuer came. A rescuer named Moses. And Moses gathered our people and spoke truth to the empire. And we escaped that empire through the Red Sea. And then we became a nation. God destroyed our enemies. And the empire fell. That empire doesn't exist anymore. And now here we are in Babylon. And in Babylon, we can remember that this is another empire. They're not like us. We don't live this way. We live differently. We follow our traditions and we follow our stories. But this empire is not going to last forever. One day this empire is going to fall. And they waited for another Moses. These are the stories that Jesus heard. This is the reality in which Jesus lived. Jesus believed that this would happen again. This is what he was taught. There will be another walk through the Red Sea. Babylon will fall as Egypt did, and we will be free. He grew up with these stories. Jesus believed these stories. He knew that Egypt had fallen. He knew that Babylon had fallen. He knew that Rome would fall too. Jesus paid very close attention to these teachings. Jesus grew up, gathered people around him, people with names taken from the previous generation's revolutionaries, people including a tax collector, somebody who was in cooperation with the Roman Empire, and a zealot. Among his people, at least one, a zealot, someone who was ready to give their life and violently overthrow Rome. He gathered his people and then he began to teach something new. To do so was not new. The rabbis of the time would learn the stories in this gathered book, and they would interpret them and they would teach from them. And some of the people that told these stories would tell stories and say, what we really need to do is we need to follow all the laws that we see in this book, and we need to do it perfectly. And if we follow all the laws in this book perfectly, and we do everything that it says in every single way, once everybody has done that, then Moses will appear and magic will happen and Rome will fall. And there was another group of people, and they said, no. This book is just a way of us understanding, how to get along with Rome. And these were a more intellectual group of people. And they said, we're just going to kind of get along with Rome, and we're going to do our best to be our own people, but we're still going to, recognize that these are our neighbors now, and we're going to get along. And then there were others that took these stories and said, this is not who we are. We are separated from these people. Just like Moses took the people out of Egypt, we should be out of Rome. And they left. And they just lived in the wilderness and said, we're going to live separately from all of this. We're not going to participate in any of this. We're not going to use Rome's money. We're just going to live in tents on the edge, and basically had a communal lifestyle together. So there was lots of different teachings at the time, and Jesus' teachings were about the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven was a community that existed after empires had fallen. It was a community that was more real than Rome or Egypt or Babylon. It was a community that would never end, would continue to organize, and would organize according to love and justice and mercy and faithfulness. And he taught how to live in that kingdom now. Jesus didn't fuck with Rome much. Jesus' way was to gather people who, many of them were what we would call internally displaced persons. Folks probably who had lost jobs, folks who might not have had homes, folks who were among the racialized people, the least among them. How do we know that those were the kinds of people that Jesus was gathering? We know because the stories of Jesus are of him teaching thousands of people and then feeding them. And when we imagine a large group of people gathering to hear someone speak outside, and they're listening long enough that they don't have food to eat, it makes a lot of sense that these were not the wealthiest. These were not the folks with the most influence. These were your regular working people trying to make it in a colonized land as a racialized group of people. That's who he was speaking to. And when I say that's who he was speaking to, I mean there were probably soldiers present. In Luke, we have a story of Jesus basically making his way across the countryside, gathering people as he goes. Once again, who drops what they're doing and follows somebody who's walking across the countryside talking about a new way of living, unless they don't have a lot to lose? And Jesus walks across the countryside and he makes his way towards Jerusalem. Now, there were probably cops present, because in situations like what I'm describing right now, cops find themselves present. So I'm not saying that Jesus said these things and other people didn't hear them. But over and over and over again in Jesus' teaching, we see him stating and demonstrating that the stories he's telling are for his people. Therefore, his group of people in occupied Palestine, especially the Jewish people. And he speaks of the ministry of those who follow him being a ministry to the least of these. When cops arrived, and when folks who weren't of his people arrived and asked for help, Jesus would often respond in ways that I would honestly say sound pretty discriminatory, if we forget that Jesus was the racialized person and the person he was talking to was the privileged one. He did minister to and serve and help folks that weren't Jewish. But he said over and over again that his reason for existing on the earth was for his people. And so we have a story. We have a story that was gathered by people who were racialized and occupied and in exile, telling stories of being racialized and occupied and enslaved and in exile, and saying, these are the stories of where we came from. And it's being passed down and told to others who are in exile and colonized. And the person at the center of the story that we like so much is one of those people, speaking specifically to the racialized, colonized people. And now here we are handling this book. How did we get here? How did somebody who looks like me, living in Canada, a colonizer, end up with this book, reading this book? With what lens do I read this book? Who do I have in mind when I read this book? Who is speaking to me? Who are the ancestors that are speaking to me when I read this book? I'm going to refer to my notes again. Paul. Paul is the reason. I don't like Paul. Jay likes Paul. I don't like Paul. I'm not a fan. And I think I have good reason to not be a fan. I mean, he started off his story a murderer. He started off his story being one of those people who said, what we need to do is follow every rule. He was one of those, the Pharisees. He said, we're going to follow every rule. And if we follow every rule and do it all perfectly, then then it's all going to work out. And then something magic will happen and we'll have our Moses. And then the empires will magically fall. And then Paul encountered a Christian named Cornelius. And Paul was a Jewish Christian named Cornelius. And Paul was injured. He was blind. And while with Cornelius, he learned about Jesus. And he came to a new understanding. Paul, however, was not like Jesus, or like a lot of the people that followed Jesus. Paul was a person of great privilege. And Paul found himself now in a tradition that was following the teachings of a man who insisted on living the kingdom of heaven now. Jesus had said the kingdom of heaven is among us. Jesus had said, not that one day after we die, we're going to go to the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is among us. It's inside you. It's in your relationships. We can live this now. And the way that he taught this is he taught about mutual aid. He said, if you have something to give, you need to give it. The people surrounding Jesus shared what they had. And he demonstrated this by feeding the people that came to see him. He taught about solidarity. He taught about seeing the other like you see yourself. He taught about love. He taught about loving others as you love yourself. And he said that this was the way that we're going to have a different kingdom, that this was contrary to the way of empire. And this is what Paul heard. Jesus taught a nonviolent way. In one of his sermons, in one of the collections that we have that we call the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew, which is very similar to another collection that we have in Luke that we call the Sermon on the Plain. And I highly recommend reading them both and comparing them. If you don't know the stories of Jesus or the teachings of Jesus, that's a great place to start. And in fact, it might even be a great place to finish if you just want to dip your toes in. Read the sermons on the plain and the plain and the mount. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talked about nonviolent resistance in the following way. He said, if a person compels you to walk 1 mile, walk with that person too. Now, there was only one kind of person who could compel you to do that, and that is that in the first century, Roman soldiers were able to compel the people that they colonized to carry their stuff for 1 mile. A mile being a distance that was decided by Rome. And Jesus said, if someone compels you to carry their shit, carry it further. He said, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also. And he said, if someone says, give me your coat, take off the rest of your clothes and give them that too. Now, these are three very interesting examples. And I imagine that in all three of them, the people listening likely laughed because a Roman soldier couldn't ask you to take their stuff 2 miles. A Roman soldier wouldn't take your clothes from you, at least not in theory, not according to the law. So the idea of a Roman soldier saying, I'm going to force you to do this, and then looking that cop in the eye and saying, you know what, you can't tell me what to do. And I'm going to prove it to you. Your authority is not the authority that I recognize. The authority that I recognize is the authority of the law of love. I'm going to carry your shit. And I'm going to have an entire mile for you to awkwardly find out that I'm a human being. Maybe we'll have a chat. These were the colonizers. The Roman soldier slaps you in the face with the back of their hand, indicated by the cheek that Jesus said would be hit. And then you look at them and you show them your other hand. You're demonstrating that you're not going to be treated backhandedly the way that you would treat a slave or a servant or somebody that was less than you. You were saying, if you're gonna punch me like you're ready to fight. Punch me like I'm an equal. Punch me like I'm a human being. And Jesus said, if they take your coat, give them everything else too. Check it out. This is a human being. And you know what you're doing? You're taking everything from us. You are taking everything. Don't pretend that because your law says you're allowed to take this coat, that makes it okay. Because what you're actually doing is you're stripping us naked. That's what you're doing. Now, this is an aside, do I think that Christians need to follow nonviolence? No, I don't. I don't think that a Christian or that anyone needs to follow the way of nonviolence. I think that the way of nonviolence is a way. I don't think that Jesus describing nonviolence means that it was prescriptive. I think that Jesus was describing nonviolence because it worked. I think Jesus was describing nonviolence because people didn't need to get unalived over a cop saying, carry my stuff. I think that Jesus wanted his people who were living as though the kingdom was now to live as long as possible. And in so doing, to take opportunity to show that they were living that way when they were living with each other and sharing what they had. in solidarity and in mutual aid, living as though Rome was not occupying them and saying, we are going to govern ourselves, even though this is here. We're going to organize until we make this empire irrelevant. But also, when forced into a circumstance where you have to interact with that empire, to stay alive and to continue to live as though that kingdom is inside of you. I'm not going to, and I don't believe that I have any right, especially as this person that's got my colonized ancestor past and this skin color, to say that anyone should have to follow the nonviolent way. However, it is a way. It is a way, and it can be effective. Martin Luther King Jr. followed the way of nonviolence, as inspired by Jesus, and as described by Leo Tolstoy in the Kingdom of God is Within You. Leo Tolstoy's a seminal work of Christian anarchism and Christian nonviolence that I also recommend. Leo Tolstoy's description of Jesus' nonviolent way, and it was effective. And also, Martin Luther King Jr. got unalived. He was killed by the state, as was Jesus. There is something to be said for when Jesus said, "Take up your cross and follow me." When he said that, he was talking about an instrument of torture and execution used by the state against insurrectionists in particular. When I hear that, what I hear is, you're gonna live this way. You're gonna live this kingdom of heaven way. And as you do, you're gonna be doing things that are contrary to the state, to this empire, to this way of being around you. And you're gonna live in such a way that a cross could be in your future. So Paul liked this. And he said, this new way of love, this new way of grace, I want to tell Romans about it. And that was very controversial. The early Christians didn't like that. The early Christians didn't like Paul going and sharing these stories with the people outside of their community. And you know what? I understand. I think that makes a lot of sense. But you know what? That's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Paul. If it wasn't for Paul saying, hey, do you want to join us? Do you want to join us in this not empire way? Do you want to join us in this kingdom way? Do you want to join us in this way of grace? Actually, I'm not going to read from the passage. Yes, I am. I'm going to read from here. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 28. If you're a regular listener to the Revolution broadcast, and I hope you are, you may have heard Galatians chapter 3 and verse 28 before. If you don't remember it, you might remember it now. It's going to come up on the screen, and it's going to be a different translation. That's fine. It says, Paul speaking, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Now, that sounds really nice. And it means that if Jesus was like Malcolm X, that Paul was doing something a little bit more like Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X was speaking to his own people, and I have a lot of respect for Malcolm X. Martin Luther King invited the oppressors to join him in his struggle. And he did so with nonviolent resistance. He didn't welcome them to take over. He led. And that is the posture that I want to suggest that folks that look like me, and folks that look like a lot of people that are listening, can take when we talk about this new kingdom. Who are our ancestors? Who are the racialized people among us? Because when Paul says there's neither Jew nor Gentile, there's neither the racialized, colonized people nor the colonizers. There's no slave nor free. There's no male nor female, non-binary. Thank you very much. I don't think that that means it's said and done. And I think anyone who thinks that it means it's said and done hasn't taken a look outside recently. Hasn't been paying attention to the news. That is very much not true. I think that what we have is an opportunity in the Jesus story to help create a world where that can be true. And I do not believe that the way that we do that is with empire. Last week, Jay said, kill your idols. It was about the most political message that Jay has ever given. And I recognize that I am speaking on a broadcast that has an American, it's an official church according to the American law, which means I can't encourage you to vote one way or the other. And so I don't encourage you to vote one way or the other. Instead, I'd like to challenge you with something. If you find that you still think you're going to find salvation in Egypt or in Babylon or in Rome or in the United States of America or in Democrats, there's a story of Clarence Thomas, largely responsible for the changes that have happened in the United States recently, the Supreme Court decisions to overturn Roe v. Wade. He made a statement saying that he also thought that the Supreme Court needs to reconsider the decisions to say that two consenting adults can get married, whatever gender they are. He wants to reconsider gay marriage. And he wants to reconsider privacy in the bedroom, meaning consenting adults can do what they can do what they want behind closed doors. He wants to reconsider those Supreme Court decisions. Clarence Thomas, what became a Supreme Court justice during the time of George Humphrey Willow Bush. I'm not American. I don't remember his middle names. And so George H.W. Bush was the president, and Clarence Thomas was nominated. When he was nominated, it was leaked that there was credible evidence that he was a sexual abuser. The accuser was Anita Hill. And so Anita Hill was called forward by the Judiciary Committee because they were forced to do so because it had been leaked. And Anita Hill came forward and she testified, and it was heard by the Judiciary Committee. And that Judiciary Committee did not want to do this. And they made it clear that they would not allow any other witnesses to come forward, even though there was at least one other woman who could corroborate these claims and say, this is not a man who has the lifestyle of a judge. The head of that Judiciary Committee was Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who last week, I'm going to read this properly, I'm not an American. Joe Biden, who last week appointed a conservative, pro-abortion federal judge. Last week. We can't put our trust in Babylon, but we can resist Babylon, and we can create a new world. We can sing like Mary did. We can gather people. We can listen to the racialized and the colonized people. We can follow their lead. We can listen to their stories. And we can participate in a world that will exist after empire is gone. Now, this is where I wanted to take us to nonviolent communication. I'm almost done, and I think I'm over my time, but we're going to take some time. We are going to take some time. Oh, I see that there's been some conversation. I hope that you all have been disagreeing well, which doesn't necessarily mean agreeing to disagree, okay? I'm going to bring us back to nonviolent communication. I have a few tips, okay? Here are the basics. First of all, this. I encourage you to be angry and have your feelings if you have them. I encourage you, I'm not saying I encourage you to be angry. I'm saying if you are angry, I encourage you to have those feelings and to express them and to let that teach you about the injustice and the separation between what it is that you know that you need and the things that you know that you want and the way things are. It's good to be angry when you see that things are not as they could be. I encourage you to have joy when you're feeling joyful and to express that joy loudly. And as you do, organize. And as you do, when I say organize, let's give some examples. Join a union. Join a union. Find a union for your particular type of work and organize with people and learn about that history of organizing in a way that is outside of the capitalist frame. Join an affinity group. Join a group of people that are together for a purpose that is making change. We do live in empire and we can have conversation with empire. And sometimes that conversation means standing up and saying no. Join those groups. Listen to the people that are already doing it. And hey, maybe we can have conversation as a community for how we can do that. Because we exist in a space where a lot of us have communication with and experience among white evangelicalism. I mean, we are 1 degree of separation from that. And I'm telling you, within that community, we have great opportunity to influence and make change because we're close to it. And sometimes, a lot of the times, that's not going to look like angry organizing or waving flags or banners or marching or occupying. A lot of times that's going to look like conversation. The people that you work with, your family. We're white. We have the opportunity. I forgot to say this at the beginning of the message. Not everyone here is white, and I understand that. But I was going to talk about nonviolent resistance, and I wanted to make it clear that when I'm talking about nonviolent resistance and suggesting that it's a way, that it isn't necessarily a way for everybody, I wanted to make it clear that I'm talking to white people, and that as white people, we have opportunity to talk to the people around us and have privilege to do so about a different way of living. So the basics are this. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings. We like to sloganeer and we like our slogans. We like our slogans like my body, my choice. That's great. That's great for a poster. That's great for a banner. That's great for a 15-second commercial spot. It may not work when talking to Uncle Bob. You might need to expand a little bit on what that means. What does it mean to respect the autonomy of each person's body and their choice to do with that body what they want? Or what, I'm not going to give any more examples because I'm running out of time. What does it mean to you? What is your experience? Now, in this case, this might be like showing someone your other cheek. This doing so, making yourself vulnerable in this way might mean that you get slapped. It might mean that you find yourself naked or that you're walking a long way. And it might mean that you make it ally. The second thing is make your needs clear. What is it that you want from this person in particular? Okay. But before you do either of those things, what are they feeling? I wouldn't doubt that a lot of folks are going to have a lot to say about the safety of children or about the life of a fetus. Give them a listen. Hear what they have to say. Don't toss them out. Because if that is something that they deeply believe, we're not going to get anywhere in conversation in any of these things if we just dismiss them because that's something that they have to say. Or if we tell them, oh, you don't actually believe that, you just want to control women's bodies. Maybe they do. I was pro-life. Many of you were, many of you might be. When I was, and for those of you that are, and for those of you that were, you probably remember it was a strong belief that that abortion was murder. But that's another cliche, like my body, my choice. It looks good on a poster. It does not help the conversation one-on-one. So what do you need? What do they need? What is it that they're looking for? Are they upset about trans people in bathrooms? Why? They're concerned about safety of their children. You don't need to discuss right away whether or not that concern actually matches reality, because the statistics show that that is just simply not a real actual danger. My cat is moving. But it's a real concern that this person has, and we can hear that. And if you share the concern for the safety of children, you can tell them so. You might get yourself slapped. You might find yourself naked. But these are ways of nonviolence. A couple of other hints. Don't put your butt in an angry person's face. If somebody is coming at you and they are angry and they are clearly not ready to listen, and they have not given consent to see your butt, that is not a great time to show them your butt. And what I mean by this, of course, is BUT. They're coming at you, they're angry, they're in your face. That is not the time to say, yeah, but they're not going to hear you. It's not going to happen. But they might, after you've heard them out, after you've heard why they're angry and what is the need that's in between what they feel they need and what they're receiving. Find out what that is. Tell them back to them what you feel that you think that they're saying, and speak to them like a human being. This is nonviolent communication. This is a practice. This is not easy. It is much easier to accuse. It is much easier to say, yeah, you know what, but you are a baby killer, or you are, I'm not going to start saying, saying the things. I can't say the things. Excuse me. It's much easier to start accusing. And I've heard accusations. I am a person who lives in the world wearing dresses and makeup and caring for children. I've heard accusations. It's going to happen. And a new kingdom is coming. I could go on. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to remove this barrier and see what's going on in the conversation. Josh, I know that we're over time. There's a lot going on here. If you want to come back,
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. That was a great talk. I was taking notes, and I'm gonna have to listen to it again because I couldn't write fast enough. That was gave me a lot to think about.
well, you know more about what's going on in the chat than I do. So if you want to
Oh,
point to some things, I would love to
um,
react in whatever way.
well, there's a lot of Roe v. Wade talk, but everybody's been good with their disagreeing. Well, we definitely have different stances. Um, so, oh my, hold on. So, but everyone, yeah, there we had some people speaking from the heart, some from experience, some from very tragic experiences, and so it was good. But no one really seemed to get very nasty. So, but no one asked. I'm phrasing like that because no one has asked a specific question. It was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Steve says
What
that was wonderful, which I definitely agree. You got another compliment on your shirt from Ray.
I love this shirt. Thanks for noticing.
It's a great one.
Okay. Well, why don't we we're on a delay, but why don't we just leave it for a moment and see
Yeah,
if
for
there's
sure.
any questions? I didn't get through all my notes. And so yeah, I didn't get to as much of the hints and tips for nonviolent communication as I thought I might. But
My
I think just introducing an idea. I want. I'm hoping that this is. I'm just talking, hoping that if you're in the chat and you have any questions, that you'll go for it. I'm just on a delay, so Josh and I won't see them for a minute.
yeah,
So
it takes some time, so we'll leave it up. But
yeah, so
another compliment on your shirt.
my intention here was to complement the things that Jay has been saying, what I believe that this community is about, but to give some that practice that I described of nonviolent communication is one step, one tiny nugget of how we can actually put this kind of world into practice. It's just one, but that's me trying to make it practical. So that's what I was hoping to do. And let's see if there's any other questions. There were a couple things that I didn't mention. Thought terminating cliches, maybe avoid them. I guess I mentioned sloganeering. I mentioned accusations. There's a logical fallacy called oh my gosh, the name has slipped my mind right now. There's a logical fallacy or there's two logical fallacies that I think are relevant. One is oh my gosh, Bad Religion sang a song, ad hominem. So bad religion song. I just needed to remember that. So an ad hominem attack is when we decide we're not going to listen to somebody because of something in their person, instead of hearing what they have to say. And it's a way of dehumanizing somebody. And when we do that, we're not actually seeing that person anymore. And also, we're not opening up the opportunity to change. Here's the thing: if we're going to communicate nonviolently and actually listen to people, we have to be willing to recognize that we might be the one to change. We might be the one to change our mind. If we're coming into that like a chess game, then we're not actually engaging another human being, right? We're just playing a chess game. We're just moving pieces on a board. And if we're looking at another person saying, hey, like, this is one that I actually get often. I get often in person or online. In person, it will be you're wearing makeup. I don't have to listen to a word you're saying. By the way, thank you very much, Lauren, my neighbor, for the makeup. I'm feeling very good today with my makeup. And you're wearing makeup or you're wearing a dress. I don't have to listen to a thing that you have to say. Or online, I have pronouns in my bio, and I've literally had about 5 times now people say, you have pronouns in your bio. I don't have to listen to a thing that you have to say. We could just as easily say, I know you voted Republican. I don't have to listen to a thing you have to say. But as soon as we do that, we lose the opportunity of potentially making an ally. Of course, I've showed my hand when it comes to my own political leanings. But guess what? What I've described actually works for everybody. So even if you don't feel as I do, nonviolent communication is not something that just works for weirdos like me. Not a weirdo. I'm pretending you think so. And the other one is straw man, when instead of listening to what the other person has to say and actually hearing their argument, we come up with an argument that they're saying and we argue against that. And as soon as we do that, we're not listening. And as soon as we do that, we're no having a real conversation with that person. So
very true. No,
Yeah.
this has been great. No, there's so
looks like there's something going on in the
well,
comment.
so a lot of it is Andrea seems to have a different opinion on the Roe v. Wade, and we just don't want them to feel like ostracized for it. You know, it's everyone's allowed to have their own opinions, and that's what we're not trying to preach to the choir, as comforting as it is. So we want difference of opinions. We just want to navigate them well.
Andrea, I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope that you stick around.
There was a few requests to have you back, in which I responded that you will be back. You just didn't know it yet because you were talking. But
apparently, I'm invited back. Then.
Yes,
I
don't have.
I mean, I did say the F word at least once, and
Yeah, I'll take it out. I have to do that for Jay too. But
I suggested that the United States was, an empire, on the July 4th weekend. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's like only America and the Roman Empire cover their heart, right? So with their hands. So it's
yeah. Hey, Selena, I'm glad that you stuck around for this. Give me a call after. I'd love to talk to you. No idea how Selena's going to respond to this, privately with me. No idea how this is going to go. But Selena, I'm glad that you were here. I hope that I covered some of the things that you suggested. When it comes to nonviolence, now that I'm like, oh yeah, Selena's listening. When it comes to nonviolence, one of the things that I say when I say I'm talking to white people is we like to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. using nonviolence, and we white people do. And often when white people talk about Martin Luther King Jr. using nonviolence, we will say so in a way that is prescriptive, as though we're saying, those people need to also organize nonviolently because Martin Luther King Jr. did. Meanwhile, we're sitting on our ass and doing nothing. Nonviolence is a very brave, very bold, very dangerous thing to do.
It's not for the weak of heart. Yeah.
Not at all. And when I say that I'm suggesting that nonviolence is a way, I'm saying that as a white person, I need to do it first. I'm saying I'm not going to prescribe that to folks with less privilege than me. I'm going to say I'm going to do this. And I'll say this: my nonviolence, even as it is, stops short of when I need to protect my children. It's not something that we can just wave around because, Martin Luther King Jr. said it, so we need to do it too. Or, Jesus said, turn your cheek, so we should all go around getting our cheeks slapped. You first. You first.
There's an interesting story that I love with Jesus too. When he's on trial, a Roman soldier hits him with the butt of his spear, and Jesus doesn't strike back, but he confronts the person, right? He says, what did I do to deserve that? If I don't do anything to deserve it, then don't do it. It's a very, it's not a violent confrontation, but it is standing his ground in response to it. So that always is something that sticks with me as well. He's not just, we often think of turning the other cheek as just getting walked over and smacked around and discarded. But so that was always something that stuck out to me as well.
We have somebody in the chat. Joseph Camp says, I don't believe in being an ally. Yeah. I believe in being but not to everyone. I agree with you. I would like to speak to that. I don't think that I made this clear enough. Remember, I was speaking to white folks, and one thing that was in my notes that I didn't get to was this. Before you even go ahead and try to non-violently confront somebody, you don't have to be friends with everybody. You don't have to make a friend of everybody. You don't even, you don't have to do that. If somebody is determined to misunderstand you, walk away. Walk away. Don't stick your butt in the face of an angry person. Okay? In Jesus' teachings, he also said, if you go into a town and you're not received, he said, knock the dust from your feet and go somewhere else. Don't do it. Don't do it. It is also nonviolent to walk away. That is also nonviolent. And you know what? There are other ways of interacting other than nonviolence as well. I am going. I am a trans non-binary person. I'm a queer person in the world. And I'm not going to give examples. That's what I paused for to consider. I'm not going to give examples. But I have experienced violence or threats of violence to my person. And I did not respond with a smile. I will give a very general example. And also, you know what? Even just in the last couple of weeks, I have responded to somebody that I perceived as threatening in a way that I would say was not nonviolent. I got all up in their space and I stuck a camera up to their face and I yelled at them. I was very angry. So, Jay often talks about ways that he screwed up. That's how much I screwed up. This was a viciously anti-trans person standing on a street corner with amplification and signs talking about trans people. And they do this often, and I got right up in their face about it. I mean, I didn't touch them, but I wouldn't say that I responded nonviolently to them. I would say, I mean, I suppose I did. I suppose that was nonviolent, but not really in the spirit of what I'm talking about, in the sense that, no, it was. I was accusatory. But then I changed my tactic, and I didn't need to do this. I'm not saying this is prescriptive either. Okay? You don't need to do this. You could, instead of getting up in someone's face and accusing them, just not do that. That's also nonviolent. But what was important to me was this guy, shut the fuck up. That was what was important to me. I was in the realm of harm reduction. And so what I did is I took a pause and I stepped away and I looked at him and I said, I got his attention, and he was still talking into his mic. And I apologized for getting all up in his face and said, look, the reason that you shoved me with your hand and then pushed me with your sign was probably because I was standing too close to you and you were scared. After you shoved me with your hand and pushed me with your sign, I got scared, and I responded by putting my camera in your face and screaming and yelling at you. And that probably made you feel scared. What I would really like is to have a conversation with you. And that guy took the microphone off his head and he put it down and he talked to me for 30 minutes. Did I change his mind? No, I did not. Did he change mine? No, he did not. Did we make friends? No, we did not. But for 30 minutes, the people of downtown Amisquatchie, downtown Amisquatchie is not a thing. The people that were in this downtown area in my city, once called Amisquatchie, they didn't have to listen to this guy for 30 minutes. And that was my nonviolent resistance.
And it also goes without saying that you said you did not change their mind, but you might have given them something to think about when they're trying to sleep and they're tossing and turning and all that stuff. You don't know, but
Maybe.
it's possible, right? Because we've had interactions with people, like you're still talking about the interaction and how it made you self-reflect. So it's possible to think that maybe that happened as well.
Maybe. Maybe. It's very difficult for me to have that hope as somebody who's experienced the kind of violence and threats of violence that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody is so committed that they're standing up and preaching on the street corner with signs and amplification,
Mm-hmm.
we're not dealing with the kinds of folks that are, I'm not dealing with somebody who is, there to listen.
It's very true. Yeah. Yep.
Right? People with microphones are not there to listen. Look, here I am with a microphone right now, not listening right now. No, yeah. But what happened was, for 30 minutes, he wasn't amplified, and the people of 3 blocks radius weren't listening to him say those things anymore. And that was a win in my books.
That is a win.
Now, actually, I'll go ahead since we're still here. After I was there for 30 minutes, guess why I left, Josh? Guess why I left?
Why did you leave?
I left because after 30 minutes, somebody else showed up with amplification.
Oh God.
I think they were singing Dancing Queen.
Okay.
And they were covered in rainbows, and they had a stool, and they had balloons and streamers and a bunch of other people wearing rainbows who also had balloons and streamers. And they set up right next to this guy, and they played Dancing Queen is what they started with. I'm almost certain. And yeah, so you couldn't hear the guy anymore. And that was also nonviolent resistance.
Yes, it
Um,
was. It's great. That's great. That's the feel good story of the of the year.
yeah.
So
Yeah. So there you go. Have any questions shown up?
no, the comments on your story, and people are impressed, and you have Selena said more power to you. Defend yourself. You're not Jesus. You're a parent with kids and trans, and have every right to be safe or get to safety. Very true.
I would like to offer the floor to Joseph Camp. We have a trans black man in the
I'm not trying to undermine anything, but I'm not fully convinced that Joseph Camp is not a troll who has been
Oh, really?
troll. Yeah, I cannot speak to it, but there's been a few.
We don't know that.
We don't know. There's a few comments and baiting that seem to happen. So I just want to, because you were not able to see it happening live. The few comments.
Joseph Camp, like here. Thanks, Joseph.
Um,
Okay.
I could be very wrong. It's just I just want to fill you in on my
Well,
instinct and
Joseph Camp. Um, okay.
if I'm wrong,
So
Joseph, I do apologize
here's
publicly. But
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Um, I just want to take a moment to Andrea, are you asking me what my passion in life is, or are you asking Lisa or someone else?
I want to
Joseph,
say that's for you.
if you're around, Joseph, then I would love to hear what you have to say. If you say that you are a trans black man, then I think that what you have to say is important. And I'm not going to assume that you're a troll. And if you're somebody who's been here with a lot of disagreements, then maybe you're worth listening to, and maybe we can practice. I mean, like, this has already gone way longer than it's supposed to. So, but Andrea, you asked me what my passion in life is. My kids, easy. That's just the only thing that comes to my mind immediately. My passion in life is being a dad more than anything else. That's that's everything. It's the reason why I have a job, and I do have a job now. For those who know that I've been looking for work and recently lost work, I have a job now, and I'm supervising. I'm supervising playgrounds for the city of Edmonton. So I'll be doing that all this summer, and as a city employee, I'll have opportunities to move on. But also,
That's awesome. That's great.
The jobs that I applied for and the job that I have gives me an opportunity to be the best dad that I can be. Also, my kids can come to work with me and play at the playground, and the path that I'm on as a city employee gives me opportunities to pick roles where I will be as present for my children as I need to be. So, yeah, thanks for all the congratulations. Joseph Camp, I'm going to answer that question in just a moment, okay? My kids are 12. I'm going to talk about my kids for a minute, though, first, because that's my passion. So my kids are 12 years old on July 6th. So
Hey, this is the day before my birthday, July 7th.
Your birthday's July 7th?
Mm-hmm.
Joshua, that means that your birthday is before next week, before next Sunday,
It's very true.
which means this is your birthday week, Joshua.
Me and Ringo Starr, baby.
This is your birthday week. Okay. I'm going to pull a Jim Baker right now. That's right. I just invoked Jim Baker, and I'm going to say that if we have somebody present whose birthday it is, we need to sing happy birthday to
Oh
that
God.
person.
Oh God.
So I'm going to do that for you right now. And I'm just going to assume that everyone else out there is going to sing along with me. So if you would, for Joshua, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Joshua. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
So yes, I love being a dad. July 6th, they turned 12. They just finished grade 6 and will be going to a new junior high school. That's what we call middle school here in next year in September. So Joseph Camp asked what a woman is. So I'm going to start by saying that for those that don't know, there is a conservative pundit named Matt Walsh who very recently put out a documentary called What is a Woman? And basically it's a documentary of him filming himself asking people that question. The documentary doesn't exist to try and actually answer the question. The documentary does not exist to try to understand what trans people mean when they use the word woman. It doesn't try to do that at all. And unfortunately, that question, what is a woman, is like this documentary in the realm of those sort of sloganeering things that we say in order to end conversation. It's said to try to trap somebody in a, oh, you're having a difficult time answering this question. Well, then that just, you're showing that you're an idiot or whatever. It's a gotcha question. And in the realm of nonviolent communication, gotcha questions, not helpful. So right now, I want to determine, is Joseph Camp somebody who's walking the same direction as me? That's a thing that it was in my notes that I didn't say. This is the don't put your butt in an angry person's face, right? You asked me this question, but is this person walking the same direction as me? Because if they're not, if they're determined to misunderstand me, then it isn't helpful for me to engage them. It's not helpful to them. It's not helpful to me. I don't have to. It can be a nonviolent response to not respond. I could also choose to make the most gracious interpretation and say maybe he's actually seeking knowledge. Maybe he's trying to understand.
Well, it does go to be said that if you look back in the chat, they have been here for like an hour and a half, so it is possible. Yeah,
they've stuck around. So thanks for sticking around, Joseph.
Yes, thank you.
So I don't know much more about Joseph other than that he uses a lot of caps lock, and that he's asking me this question. So I'm going to assume the most gracious response that he doesn't know Matt Walsh. And even if he does, he's asking because he's actually trying to understand. Joshua, the best answer that I can give you is that, first of all, sex and gender are two different things. And so when your question, what is a woman, comes, then my question becomes, are you speaking of sex or are you speaking of gender? because sex is a biological thing. We are born with a certain sex. Most of us are born either with uh, with genitals that look like a penis or genitals that look like a vulva. And those of us with genitals that look like a penis are called men or male. And those of us with genitals that look like a vulva are called female. And some of us are born um, with ambiguous genitals, and those folks are called intersex. Also, some folks are born with a vulva or a penis and are also intersex because perhaps their gonads are not congruent with the penis or with the vulva. Um, and sometimes the inner genitals are different than the outside genitals, or sometimes they have both. So that's intersex, folks. So if we're talking about biology, then in common speech, a woman could be described as an adult female person. That is still common speech. However, gender is gender is something that exists outside of just the genitals or the chromosomes. They have to do with what's going on inside of the person, inside of the human person, and the way that they interact with gender identity, gender expression, and gender, gender identity, gender expression. I'm getting a lot of texts right now, so I'm a little bit distracted. But gender identity, gender expression, and some people are gender fluid. So somebody who identifies as a woman might have different genitals than somebody who's biologically female. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I mean, I think that's a very great and gracious answer. So thank you.
Uh, there we go. I think I need to check my texts here. I think it might be about time to go.
Yeah, I think so. I did not want to cut you off because that was a very
Oh, we've
great
gone
thing. But it
45
is,
minutes. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I
No,
didn't
it's.
realize it was so long. Feel free to edit this down to like whatever it's
Oh,
supposed to be. Oh my gosh. But the
no,
chat is wonderful. This was the afterglow. I'm really glad
well,
that
It's we haven't had a combination talk after going a while, so of course that is going to be uh, longer. But it's after this, it's not going to be a live thing anymore. People could pause and come back to it later on. There's no need to feel nervous about the length of the talk. It was great, but I think that Joseph Campbell, we might be
you don't,
Joseph Camp, we might be.
don't need to use that word troll though.
No, I'm saying that we might be spinning our wheels is what I was gonna say.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
either way, it was very great answer. So
Joseph, you can find me on Instagram at ZOSOBIRSS, and I would love to continue this conversation with you. You can also find me at Queer Metamorphoses. That's QUEERMETAMORPHES. Metamorphoses, not metamorphosis. You can find me on Instagram with either of those. And so, yeah, I'm very happy to continue this conversation. Joshua, this chat was lovely. Is it possible for it to be posted so that the chat is still seen? Is that
so normally what I do is I will leave this up until I do the edited one, and then I swap them. The edited one does not have the chat. I do not know if that's a possibility because I download it, but It will be up with the chat for a few days, and I don't delete anything. So even if when I swap them out, it still exists. It's not like deleted off of
it
YouTube.
does?
Yeah, yeah. I usually mark it to unlisted or private. This way, because what would happen would be the next two videos would be the live
be the
talk
same.
and the edited talk of the live talk. So that's why I try to do that. But
Can we call one of them? Can we call one of them raw and one of them edited?
yeah, we could. Yeah, I'll
Or
definitely
one
talk to
of
Jay
them
about
like
what his or like with chat and edited
like
without chat.
chat and edited? Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I can't make. I'll talk to Jay. I can't make the full on decision right here, but I think that's a good idea, and we could probably certainly do that. So
hey, love to all y'all, and to Jay when you listen to this later, and to everyone else who listens to this later. Hi, Derek Mensch. Um, just smoldering in the background of our photo. Yeah, I'm thirsting for Derek Mensch 20 years later. So, hi everyone else listening to this later. It was a pleasure to be here, and solidarity to all of you.
all right, thank you everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.